Hey everybody, this is going to be the recording video, tutorial video for the order of operations and evaluating expressions section. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch my screen over so you can see the handout. And your options are to either use Cami to write, to have this handout printed and write it by hand, or to take notes in a notebook. My preference would be to print out the actual handout and take the notes on the guided notes themselves. That would be the easiest option if you have a printer. We present. Okay, so this should be up on the screen now. You should see a bunch of math. Okay, so this section, get my thing working here, let's see. Okay. So this section has two major topics. The first one is the order of operations, and sorry, tech issues going on. So the first major topic is the order of operations, and the second major topic is evaluating expressions. So the goals by the end of this section are that you're able to use the order of operations to simplify an expression, and you're able to evaluate an algebraic expression for a given value of a variable or maybe more than one variable. And those would be the goals after this section. So I want to start with the order of operations, which you may have heard of before, using the abbreviation PEMDAS. Maybe in middle school you've heard of that. And oftentimes the expression we use to remember that is, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. It's a nice way to remember it, but it helps to know what the math actually means. And what this is talking about is when they're giving you an expression in math, there's a very specific order that you have to follow when you're evaluating that expression. You can't do it in whatever order you want. And so the order that we always go to is PEMDAS. It's called the order of operations. You always start by evaluating what's in parentheses, if there are parentheses in the problem. So we start with parentheses. Next, we move on and we evaluate anything that has an exponent. So an exponent would be like the little number that's way up in the sky. For example, 2 to the third. That 3 up top is an exponent. And all it means is you multiply 2 by itself 3 times in a row. 2 times 2 times 2 would be 8. Okay. So an exponent tells you how many times to multiply the number by itself. After you've done parentheses and exponents, multiplication and division, I'm going to call number 3 together because you do whichever one shows up from left to right first. So if division shows up first on the left, you do division, and then you would do multiplication afterwards. Or if multiplication showed up before division on the left-hand side, you would do the multiplication first. Okay. And then likewise for addition and subtraction, you do whichever one shows up on the left-hand side first. So if you see addition first, do addition. If you see subtraction first, do subtraction. But this is the order that we follow when we're trying to simplify an expression. And I don't know, I sometimes see these viral posts on Facebook or social media, the viral math problem. And usually a lot of people get them incorrect because what they want to do is they just want to evaluate it from left to right. No, I'm going to put a big box around that. No, don't do that. No. Did I make it clear enough? Should you do that? No. Okay, you don't want to just solve it from left to right. The correct way to go about it is using the order of operations. Parentheses, then exponents, then multiplication or division, whichever one shows up first. And then addition or subtraction, whichever one shows up first. And just a couple little math memes and jokes up here. This is someone who forgot to use PEMDAS, and they're very upset about it. That's actually Matthew McConaughey. If you have seen any of his movies, that's from Interstellar. And there's Aunt Sally. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. She's reminding you to use the order of operations. Okay. So let's do some examples because you are going to have some on your Math Excel assignment that are similar to this. So once we run through a few of these, I think you'll get the hang of how to use the order of operations to simplify an expression. And you'll notice in these problems, not every single letter in PEMDAS may be used. You might not have to do all of PEMDAS. There might just be some of them. So for example, in the first one, I usually start by, when I do these the first couple times, just writing on the side for myself, PEMDAS. And let's just check off as we go. There's no parentheses. I don't see any exponents. There's no little numbers up in the sky. So the first thing I'm going to do is multiplication or division, whichever one shows up first. I see division. So the first thing I'm going to do is 6 divided by 3, which is 2. And then I'm going to carry down the times 8. That dot means times. Okay, so I did my division. I still have multiplication I have to take care of. 2 times 8 is 16. And I'm done, because there's my one answer. There's no addition or subtraction in this problem. I don't see an addition sign, and I don't see a subtraction sign either. So this one would come out to 16, and we would be done. Number 2, okay, you got a lot more going on in this one. I'm still going to write PEMDAS. I'm going to save this as we go so we don't lose it. Okay, so in the second one, I don't see parentheses, so I can cross that out, but I do see an exponent this time. I see a 3 squared. So cross off my parentheses. Cross off the P. For the exponent, I'm going to evaluate that first. So I'm going to do this piece right here. 3 squared, as a reminder, is not 3 times 2. 3 squared means 3 times 3. You're multiplying it by itself. So that would be 9. So I'm going to carry down everything else I haven't used yet, but I'm going to replace 3 squared with 9. I always do these problems one step at a time, because that's the easiest way to get them correct. If you try to do too much in your head, you're going to mess something up. Okay, exponents we've taken care of. Multiplication is next, or division. Which one do I see first? I see multiplication first. 5 times 9 is 45. Minus 14 divided by 7. Then I do my division. I'm not doing the subtraction yet, because division has to happen before subtraction. So I'm just going to carry down 45 minus 14. Oop, let's do this. We can actually do this part though. 14 divided by 7 is the division. 14 divided by 7 is 2. So now I'm left with 45 minus 2. Cross off my division. There is no addition in this problem. There's only subtraction. So I can finish this with 45 minus 2, which is 43. Okay, next one. PEMDAS, order of operations. There is no parentheses or exponents. I look for multiplication. I don't see it. I look for division. That's where I have to start. Start with 20 divided by 10. That's 2. And then carry down everything else from up top. 4 minus 2. And then I carry down the plus 7. So I'm going to cross off my multiplication and division. And I'm left with addition or subtraction. Remember, you have to do it in the order from left to right of whichever one shows up first. So even though A is listed first in the acronym, I'm going to do the subtraction first because it shows up on the left-hand side. This would be 2 plus 7, because 4 minus 2 is 2. And I carry down the plus 7. And then I do the addition to finish up. 2 plus 7 would be 9. In number 4, this time we do have parentheses. So PEMDAS, you have 2 sets of parentheses. So I'm going to just do them from left to right. That's a nice systematic way of going about it. So if I start with the left parenthesis, I'm going to evaluate what I see inside. I see 5 minus 2, which is 3. And that's being cubed. I'm not going to do the exponent yet because I still have one more parenthesis set I have to take care of. Inside this parenthesis, now I actually have to use the order of operations again. So think, should I do the subtraction first or the division first, according to the order of operations? If you look at your acronym, the division has to come first. So I'm going to do the 16 divided by 8, which is 2. So I get negative 3 minus 2. And notice I'm carrying everything down as I see it from up top. The only thing I've replaced is 16 divided by 8 with 2. This right parenthesis set, I can still simplify -3 minus 2 a little bit more in the parenthesis. So I get 3 cubed plus, that would be -5 squared. Notice the negative sign is in the parenthesis since it started in the parenthesis. Now I've done my parentheses, so now I'm going to move on to my exponents. And I'm going to do them from left to right. 3 cubed, you can do that by hand. 3 times 3 times 3, be 3 copies of 3. On your TI-84 calculator, first of all, if you've never used this before, to turn it on, the on button is in the bottom left corner. You hit on. And then if I want to do 3 cubed, what I would do is type 3. The exponent button is in the right column. It looks like an upside down V. That's the button we use for an exponent. And then I want to raise it to the power of 3. So I would type in 3 and I would hit enter and I'd get 27. And that's just doing 3 times 3 times 3. So this is 27 plus -5 squared. Well, what would that mean? That's -5 times -5, which is actually going to make that a positive 25. And you can confirm that on the calculator as long as you make sure you put your negative sign in the parenthesis. You'll notice there's a little negative sign and there's a thicker minus sign. The one that you see me pointing at right now in the right column is subtraction. The one in the bottom right here, the little one, is the actual negative sign that we want to use. We don't use the little one for subtraction. We use it for the negative. So that's -5, close the parenthesis. So I opened it with this one, I closed it with this one. And then to square, you can either hit the exponent button again and hit 2, or there's a nice little square button in the left column over here that'll square it right above the word log. So that tells us it's 25. 27 plus 25 would be 52. Number 5, we've got, you got a set of brackets this time, and the reason they're using brackets is because they already use parentheses here. So we are going to have to start inside here for PEMDAS. Think of the brackets as just a bigger set of parentheses. But then once you're inside that big set of brackets, you got to move on to the little set of parentheses to start out. So I'm going to start with 7 minus 5, which is 2. So I got 2 to the 5th divided by 8. You can keep the brackets because we still have a little bit more to do. Then we have -4. I'm still inside the brackets, which is like a parenthesis. So now I do my exponents. 2 to the 5th. You type it in, 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 would be 32. Divided by 8. Still in, I'm going to change it to parentheses now since there's no more parentheses. I don't need the brackets. And then I have -4. Still working with the parentheses. This is our last step of the parentheses. 32 divided by 8 is 4. And then I subtract 4. And what's nice is I get to skip the exponents, the multiplication, the division, the addition, and I'm just left with subtraction. So 4 minus 4 would be 0. Why don't you give this one a try on your own? Pause my video. Once you're done with this one, I'll walk you through. You can check to see if you got it correct, and then you can move on. So if you do this one, just like in the last problem, you're going to have to start with what's inside the brackets, which means you're really going to have to start with each of these parenthesis sets. So the 2, I'm just going to carry down. I'm going to start with 9 minus 8, which is 1, which is being squared, and 12 minus 5, which is 7, and that's being squared. I'm still inside of this bigger set of parentheses or brackets, so I have to do what's inside of that before I multiply by 2. 1 squared is 1, and 7 squared is 49, and they're being added together. But that's still in, I'm going to change the brackets to parentheses now. They're still in parentheses. So I'm still on the P of PEMDAS. I can't do any multiplication by 2 yet. I need to add 1 plus 49. So this would be 2 times 50. Notice anytime there's a number just next to another number in parentheses, that means that they're being multiplied together. So I've done my parentheses. Now I'm going to do my multiplication. This would be 100. All right. The second part of this section deals with evaluating expressions. An expression is just a collection of numbers, letters, and operations. And before we do some of these, just a little bit of vocabulary. You've probably heard of a variable before. A variable is just a symbol. It's usually a letter, and it represents the value of some unknown quantity, some unknown number. Everybody's favorite celebrity variable to use is just the letter X, usually. In some problems, X might be 5. In other problems, X might equal 7. It's going to depend on the problem that they give you. X, Y, could be Z. Hey, it could even be a smiley face, right? Sometimes in a problem, they might say smiley face equals 5. This right here would be your variable. And this would be the quantity or the value that that variable takes on. X equals 2. Here's your variable, and then here's the value that that variable takes on. And then oftentimes in problems, you're going to have to evaluate an expression for an unknown value or for a known value of a variable. So what you can do is replace each variable in the expression with that number that they give you. And the process of replacing that variable with that number that's given to you is what we call substitution. It's very much like substitution in a game of volleyball or a game of basketball. One player gets tired, they sub out one player for another one, but the gameplay continues as normal. Nothing about the rules of volleyball has changed. Nothing about the rules of basketball has changed just by replacing those two people. Okay? Same here. All we're doing is replacing the letter with the number that they give you. So for example, if I want to evaluate 10x when x is equal to -4, all I'm going to do is I'm going to replace x with the number -4, and I'm going to do the operation. Whenever you see a number next to a variable, it's assumed that they're being multiplied. So this is like 10 times x. You just don't see the dot. It's not necessary to write it. X got tired. Who's going in? -4. So this would be 10 times -4. And usually when we substitute with a set of parentheses. So I'm substituting in -4. And then I'd use PEMDAS to evaluate. 10 times -4 would be -40. Try some other ones down here. So the directions say evaluate each expression with the given value for the variable or variables if there's more than one. So in part A, we have 3 times the quantity, x plus 4, and then -1 outside the parentheses. Everywhere we see x, we're going to substitute in the number -8. So I see 3 parenthesis. In for x, I'm going to sub in -8. And I have +4 -1. And now I use the order of operations to simplify this. I have to do the parentheses first. So -8 plus 4 would be -4. Carry down everything else like normal. Multiplication comes next between 3 and -4. So that's -12. And then if I subtract 1 from -12, I get -13. And if you were going to type that into your calculator, -12 minus 1, the 12 would be negative. So I'd use the little negative sign. But then I'm subtracting 1. So I'm not going to use the little negative sign again. When I subtract 1, I'm going to use the thicker minus sign, which is in the right column. -12 minus 1 is -13. In part B, you have evaluate 3r minus 5. So r is your variable in this one. And the value that r is taking on is 2/3. So here's the case where I'm going to substitute in for r by replacing with parentheses. I'm going to put in 2/3. And then everything else gets carried down like before. If you multiply by a fraction, it helps if you put the 3 over 1, because then you can multiply the tops together and you can multiply the bottoms together. This would be 6 over 3 minus 5. And 6 divided by 3, if you see a fraction bar, that's division. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Minus 5 would be -3. And you can also do fractions on your calculator. If you go to your calculator, 3 times 2/3 is what we had. 3 times, and then if you're going to do a fraction, you're going to have to type it as division. So you open the parenthesis, 2 divided by 3, and it writes it as a fraction. But notice you have to put the fraction in parentheses, and it gives me 2, just like I got. Okay. Part C, this time we have 2 variables. We have x and y, so we have to be careful where we substitute. I have xy over 5 all raised to the power of 2. So in this big giant set of parentheses, I'm actually going to have to substitute in 3 for x, and I'm going to have to substitute in 2 for y. So I'm going to substitute in 3. And then since they're glued together, xy means x times y. So I'm going to substitute in 2 for y, divided by 5, big parenthesis, squared. Inside the parenthesis, I have to do p first. So 3 times 2 would be 6. So I'm doing the multiplication on the top. 6 over 5 squared. When you square a fraction, it's the same as squaring a whole number. It means you have to multiply it by itself. So this would be 6 over 5 times another copy of 6 over 5. Tops get multiplied, 36. Bottoms get multiplied, 25. And whenever our answer comes out to a fraction that doesn't divide nicely, we always want to simplify that fraction. So we want to see if there's anything that a 36 and a 25 would share in common. You can do that by hand or on your calculator. If you type in 36 divided by 25, you get a decimal. We don't want to leave our answer as a decimal. We want to leave it as a simplified fraction. This calculator has a very nice way of doing that. You hit the word math in the left column, and you'll notice that frac is highlighted. That stands for fraction. We hit enter once to bring it back to the home screen, and we hit enter a second time to simplify that fraction. And in this problem, it looks like it was already simplified because it just came back again as 36 over 25. So again, I did 36 divided by 25. I hit enter, and then I hit math, enter, enter. Hit enter twice. That's a really nice, convenient way of being able to simplify a fraction on your calculator. Okay, for part D, this one uses a fraction. Obviously, you have the top and you have the bottom. With these, you want to simplify the top separately, and then you want to simplify the bottom separately. So on the top, 5 minus 3, immediately I can just write that as 2. So this is just 2 over 2x squared plus 4. The top is completely simplified now. Check. Now I'm going to simplify the bottom in the same way. I'm just going to do the bottom separately from the top. In for x, I'm substituting in 3. So I get 2 over 2 times, in parentheses, making my substitution, 3 squared, and then plus 4. So this would turn into 2 on top gets carried down. Okay. I do my exponents now in the bottom according to PEMDAS. Okay. Exponents comes first, so I would do 3 squared, which is 9. So I have 2 times 9 plus 4. Then I would do multiplication, 2 over 18. It's 2 times 9 plus 4, and then I would add 18 plus 4. 2 over 22, which is not simplified because I can divide a 2 out of the top and the bottom, which would make this 1 out of 11. And on your calculator, again, you would do 2 divided by 22. And then you can hit math, enter, enter, and it'll simplify it to 1 out of 11. All right, the last one I want you to try, so pause me, give that one a shot, and then you can start the video to see the work for that one to see if you got that one correct. And just a challenge for later, if you want to try and solve that viral math problem from the first page, hey, I will put that on my answer key so that you can see what that should turn out to be. All right, so subbing in for this one, you have x's and y's. Everywhere I see x, I'm substituting in 3. I got 2 times 3. In for y, I'm substituting in -4. So 4 times -4. And then here, there's the imaginary dot you don't see. X times y means you have to sub in 3 for x, -4 for y. Okay. Multiplication would come next. So I would have 2 times 3 is 6, plus 4 times -4 would be, well, in this case, this would make this a minus sign now. 4 times -4 would be -16. And then we would have minus 3 times -4 would be -12. So I get 6 minus 16. Minus, minus, whenever you have two negative signs next to each other, they turn into a positive. So this would be plus 12. And whenever I'm left with just subtraction and addition, I do it from left to right, whichever one shows up first. So I'm going to do 6 minus 16, which is -10. And then I'm going to add 12, which would give me positive 2. Okay, so again, we have the two big takeaways now. We did order of operations, and we evaluated expressions for a given value of a variable or variables. So that will do it for this section. The Math Excel is up for you. I believe it's 5 problems I put up. If you have any questions on those, send me an email, and then tomorrow we'll get started with solving equations. Have a good rest of your day.